Ladies and gentlemen, before the start of deliberations on today's topic, let me have the privilege as the president of NISSMAT to introduce this international institution. Established in 1990, it has now become a think tank organization with association of more than 90 experts and scholars on various subjects who provide inputs to us. Our forum has conducted a number of webinars and interactive sessions which have received massive response. I am sure our session today would be of great interest to you all. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to the second part of Narco Terrorism, it's a podcast by NISSMAT. In the earlier podcast, we had covered some aspects of narco terrorism, the agencies that sort of help narco terrorism, how was narco terrorism different from other forms of terrorism, and so on. Today, we will delve into the critical issues surrounding narco terrorism and its impact on society. From the challenges faced by law enforcement agencies to the significance of international cooperation, we aim to shed light on the multifaceted nature of this global threat. Today, we will explore the tactics deployed, the role of media, and ultimately the implications on daily life. Let us today uncover the outlook for addressing narco terrorism, particularly within the context of India. I begin by asking Mr. Sipal Singh, what challenges do law enforcement agencies face in combating narco terrorism?
Thank you very much, Ms. Bhavana Alwalia. As you rightly explained in your first few lines, narco terrorism, as we had discussed in the first dialogue, is a very intricate and is a very, very challenging form of terrorism required to be dealt with by the law enforcement agencies. In dealing with narco terrorism, these agencies have to face various challenges, and these challenges are really very, very acute, as combating narco terrorism depends on these challenges and how these challenges are met. Now, challenges are, let us say, first challenge would be cross-border operations. Second would be the corruption involved in the systems. The third would be the adaptability or maneuverability by the terrorist groups, by the terrorist networks. And then is the lack of intelligence sharing. Now, as far as legal systems are concerned, the legal systems vary from country to country. They are complicated by various legal systems, various legal procedures, various legal jurisdictional part, limitations, and harmonizing the efforts to combat narco terrorism requires a very strong and stable diplomatic negotiations between the countries and establishment of an effective cross-border cooperation mechanism. Then there's the question of corruption. The corruption has actually infiltrated into law enforcement agencies also, and also in the social system of the society. The terrorist groups, the narco terrorist group, often attempt to infiltrate the law enforcement agencies by offering corruption or trying to compromise the integrity of the investigators sometimes hindering their efforts by their criminal network. So corruption within law enforcement agencies, as well as creeping into the social system, undermines the effectiveness of the counter-terrorist measures. So this is another very important and difficult challenge, that is corruption. The cross-border operation involved international jurisdiction. Narco-terrorism often involve a cross-border operation, and these cross-border operations involve the international jurisdiction, with drug trafficking routes being different, extending across multiple countries. The enforcement agencies have to meet the challenges of various law enforcing agencies as well as various laws. And this requires a collaboration with neighboring countries and also adherence to various legal framework. Then there is a level of limitation and control in the border area. The border regions are often challenging because of their terrain, often for the law enforcement agency, due to vast, sometimes terrain, very rugged terrain, very difficult terrain. The criminal organization exploit these areas. They take advantage of the porous borders and sometimes limitation of laws and make it difficult to have effective control operation and surveillance. I had already indicated in the first part that corruption, I'd like to little elaborate that law enforcement personnel involved in counter-terrorism operate sometimes in a significant different manner. But at the same time, it involves personal risk to the law enforcement agency. It also includes threats to their safety and that of their families. The inadequate protection measures available for the law enforcement agencies contribute to the corruption or compromising their efforts with the narco terrorists. So these are a few challenges which are required to be met by the law enforcement agencies. Thank you.
In connection with this, I have a question to ask. How do narco terrorist organizations do their operations? And I'll tell you where I'm coming from. You have, let us take a poppy for instance. It is grown by farmers who have no access to the outside world. The produce is bought by some people who process the produce. Then they transport it, so logistics are involved. And when they reach a particular point where the sale is going to be done and where the money is going to be made, the distribution system is also fraught with a lot of small and large players in the field. Now, if you were in the law enforcement, where would you attack?
It's very difficult. The multilingual approach, the multi-legal approach, and especially the diverse communities involved, the diverse border trade involved, this all which you have trained, they all add to this and they're able to infiltrate. Seeking help for addiction sometime in the state, seeking help for prompting community resilience. So I am saying that there's all these challenges get together, add to the challenges or the difficulties of the counter-balancing or combating agencies.
Okay, Deepak.
Yeah, add a word here, please. You see, this, as far as the narco terrorism is concerned, it's a multinational affair. Like what Pawan you brought out, the production maybe in the Golden Crescent or the Golden Triangle, it goes to a different country or a different place for processing. Then it is transported across the border, what Mr. Sipal has mentioned. And then these local inimical groups are utilized for distribution. So it's a very complex sort of a thing. And what you said was very correct. It is not one nation. It may be a number of nations involved in this narco terrorism.
Now, Deepak, just to sort of add on to this, what are the tactics that are deployed for combating narco terrorism by the law enforcement agencies?
Yes, actually, narco terrorism networks demonstrate a very high level of adaptability. They're constantly changing the tactics. And these tactics, what has been seen by the law enforcement agencies is they shift the trafficking routes because the routes are under surveillance. They shift the trafficking routes. They use alternate means of communication because the communication again is becoming very complex. So they use various means of communication to beat the law enforcement agency communication systems. And they also keep adjusting the organizational structures because they may be with one terrorist group or one group selling the distribution of narcotics, and they may shift to another one when the first group comes under surveillance of the law enforcement agencies.
And also, amongst the tactics, I believe that there are areas allocated to each group to sell within that particular area. And so they have gang wars amongst themselves if the turf is invaded by one gang into the other.
Exactly, you're right. Another factor, very important factor in this narco terrorism at the ground level, is the use of technology by the terrorists. The terrorist network exploit technology advancement, including encrypted communications and the dark web, to conduct the operation covertly, staying ahead of those technologies which require continuous investment and surveillance. So actually, they are using the latest technology. They have people to support them in enhancing the technological base. Uh, they're investing a large amount of money in the cutting edge tools to exploit the technology.
One of the stories that I read was when Colombia was selling drugs into the United States. It was so lucrative that the Colombians would take up a plane. They would land the plane in a desolate place in America and abandon the plane thereafter after the drugs had been removed. So high were the
You're right.
profits. So high were the profits. Yes, Sipa, sir, you wanted to say something.
No, I was only raise my hand for purpose that as far as technology is concerned, I must say in the last few years, the combating forces, they have also developed very high technology to counter the technology of narco terrorists. In fact, the latest technology which have been used by their groups was the use of drones. And you know how many drones have been shot down by the forces in India or in other places. So my submission is that at one stage we were very scared that they are very advanced in technology. Narco terrorist groups have got, we do not have, we have very limited resources. But I would like to submit that in the last few years, the technology by the law enforcement agencies have also been updated to a great extent. And that is why they are able to meet sometime the difficult challenges of use of technology by the narco terrorists. I only wanted to add that we have now acquired sufficient technology.
It's very nice to know that our law enforcement agencies are also moving up in technology. But I have another question to ask, Deepak. You have different intelligence agencies, or you have different agencies combating narco terrorism, and each one of them has an intelligence cell within the organization. How difficult it
Yes.
is to collate intelligence or to collate information from each of these organizations into one place, convert it to intelligence, and thereafter disseminate it to the people who need to act on it.
You're right. What Mr. Sipal had mentioned in the first episode was that large number of agencies which are functioning against narco terrorism. there is a definite requirement for integration and cooperation between all these agencies. And then only can we be able to beat the system. There's collaboration required. There's information, flow of information, both vertically and horizontally. That's also required to stop this thing. So it's a very complex affair. You see that terrorist groups or narco-terrorist groups, they are changing the tactics. They are using the technology. As a result, what Mr. Sipal Singh has mentioned, that we have also enhanced our technological base, but we have to keep at pace. And there has to be a flow of information between the various agencies that we have, both vertically and horizontally, to stop this narco-terrorism.
And to stop narco terrorism, the population at large, the public at large, needs to sort of be aware of the problems that narco terrorism can sort of push into the society, and to publicize this and to create the knowledge for this. I feel that the media would contribute largely to this. Mr. Sipal Singh, what is your opinion on the media's role in combating narco terrorism or bringing awareness against narco terrorism?
Before I touch on the role of media, I'd like to add another dimension to what General Deepak has pointed out. That is collaboration, coordination, and sharing of intelligence with the various agencies. He has just pointed out. And by and large, again, I'd like to submit that as far as India is concerned, most of it, in the first dialogue, I said that all the intelligence collected by various agencies is a number of agencies which can deal with narco-terrorism. But by and large, all this intelligence is given to the NCB, National Crime and National Narcotic Crime Bureau record. And therefore, the coordination takes place at that place also. But still, I feel he is right that still there is a need of having a greater coordination between various agencies. Because for the sake of getting credit, sometimes the intelligence gathered by one agency is not transmitted to the other agency, whereby that the narco-terrorism escapes from the hands of that agency because it has not been shared. But the agency wants to keep it to its heart or to its chest because they want that, all right, we'll deal with it. We'll get the credit for this. So there is a need, no doubt, of coordination, but system is there as to how to coordinate. Anyway, the second point which you have raised is how can the media contribute to raise sort of awareness about narco-terrorism. In this respect, I'd like to say that media can play and has to play a very vital role in educating the public, in highlighting the consequences of narco-terrorism on the society, and also in fostering sort of sense of responsibility in the society. The role of media raising awareness about narco-terrorism would involve informative reporting. That is, the media can contribute by producing informative contents that events have taken place or likely to take place. In this respect, the link between the drug traffickers and terrorism should be highlighted as a sort of educational content for the society. This includes articles, documentaries, infographics designed to enhance sort of public interest and understanding. Then media can have interviews of experts on their media channel. Conducting such interviews with experts or with the law enforcement officials who have experienced the consequences of narco-terrorism, this provides a very valuable insight to the public. The experts' opinion can also help in sort of contextualizing the issue, make a proper context of the issue, and offer a sort of preventive measure also. Then highlight the consequences The human stories can be brought in, for example. The narrative on the media should be focused on the human impact of narco-terrorism, how the people are suffering, those who are addicted to drugs, etc. And sharing the personal stories of the people, of the individual who have been affected by the abuse of drug. So such things, plus some documentary productions, all this can help through the media in creating that awareness. Exploration of the root causes. Media should outlet and delve into the root causes of narcoterrorism. Sometimes you're just dealing superficially, which creates interest in the public, but they do not go to the root causes, examine the social economic disparities. And in the last dialogue, we said that why it is there. Why narcoterrorism is there? Because narcotic drugs have become a sort of bane for the society. So historical context, geopolitical factors, they contribute to the nexus between drug trade and terrorism, and that should be highlighted. For example, the visual impact, utilize visual elements such as photographs, such as graphs, such as video storytelling. They all have a profound impact on the audience. So a number of things can be outlined as far as media is concerned, that they have a very, very important role to play. The factual checking and dissemination of accurate information. By and large, it may be just information given this thing. So you are not giving, because the media is not going in sometime into fact checking and then disseminate the accurate information. Then media can also collaborate with the educational institution. Now, incorporating narco-terrorism in educational curricula and also on the media can help a lot. Then students' competition program can be conducted. Initiatives can be conducted on the media. Then there can be seminars on the public media. Then global perspective can be given on the media. So all this plus other key consideration of ethical reporting. You just report in the media, but you are not giving any consideration whether it's ethical or correct reporting or not. Media outlet actually should adhere to some ethical standards in reporting on narcoterrorism, because a very important element of society which is eating into the roots of the society. Therefore, ethical reporting by the media is very important. Balancing the need for public awareness with sensitivity of the political bosses at large, that should be brought out. Then the media should not only go into sensationalism while highlighting the severity of the issue. They sometimes media organization get into sensationalization only. That is not the case. So there are a number of things. Plus there should be feedback dynamics, feedback mechanics that should be there as to what is the feedback to the media on the basis of program launched by them. So I said in large, the summary, to summarize, I'd say the media plays a very crucial role in raising awareness about narco-terrorism.
Well, thank you very much for a detailed discussion on the media and its involvement with society. NISSMAT also, in its small, humble way, is participating in this particular seminar, bringing awareness about the dangers of narco-terrorism to the society at large. So I think we need a pat on our backs also.
Right. Certainly. This is a contribution indeed, because as people like General Deepak are there, they are giving you the facts as they have experienced in life. So I am of the view that this is a very important aspect and very important role NISSMAT is playing.
You see, now media is not confined to a particular geography. So how important is international cooperation in addressing narco-terrorism?
Yes. You hit a very important point. As a matter of fact, this point has already come up earlier, that the narco-terrorism involves a network which operates across national borders. Drug trafficking routes often traverse multiple countries like what you brought out, the production somewhere, processing somewhere, and then distribution somewhere else. That's absolutely imperative to have a collaborative arrangement with the neighboring countries and also the global agencies. Unless, of course, the neighboring country is actually involved in narco terrorism. Now, one has to be very clear that there are shared threats. Threat of the country in which the narcotics is coming in, or someone supplying, and it has a similar effect on the country through which it is coming. So there has to be a shared threat between the target country and the country through which the narcotics is coming. There is, as we mentioned earlier, there has to be a collaborative intelligence sharing, that information exchange on the routes, the key players, and the emerging trends. This has been covered, just covered it. Then forming a joint force, a pool of resources. Like, for example, if we know that certain areas are prone to the transshipment of narcotics, if the neighboring country have a joint force with them to stop this narco terrorism. Then there's an important facet is the coordination and law required to break the required towards the enforcement operations. That is to apprehend and prosecute the individuals who are involved in this. It could be one country, it could be somewhere else. Then, very important facet is the extradition agreement and the transfer of individuals involved in narco terrorism. This extradition agreement is a very long drawn process. Some countries have it, some countries don't have it. And this is one of the important facets in terms of curbing the narco terrorism. The next phase is tackling the transshipment points and trafficking routes. Could be done by joint control, joint police control, or joint resource control, and technological integration. So the number of things. Another important facet in terms of law enforcement towards this is this address the money laundering and finances, flow of finances. The large amount of money flows through what we call hawala. The money generated out of the narco terrorism by the criminal groups is collected, and through the hawala system, it is sent to the terrorist groups abroad. So the flow of funds and money laundering has to be kept in a very close watch. And another important aspect is this participation in international conventions. That's the drug control and counterterrorism people, and bilateral agreements which have been done. Make sure that the bilateral agreements are taken the way they are and not done away with. So these are the few points which come towards aspect of international cooperation in narcotics terrorism.
I think that's excellent, Deepak. But tell me something. How does it affect the daily lives of people in the areas where drugs are being sold openly? How the
You
daily
see,
life
let's
get
take
impacted?
let's take our own case. There are large amount of drugs which are being put into India from our western borders. That means it is a collaborative as sort of an arrangement between the narco terrorists and the forces they're being. Rather than getting into a joint force to curb this, there is still narcotics and also weapons and ammunition are being sent by drones. Tunnels have been dug. Now coming to the north eastern borders, the borders are open, and narcotics are flowing through the Golden Triangle. So it has to be a collaborative effort of the neighboring countries to curb this.
Sipal said the outlook for addressing narco terrorism in India, what is the future looking like?
Yes, the outlook for addressing narco terrorism in India presents a very complex challenge. There's a multifaceted approach which is required as India navigates through various intricacies, and the future outlook has to be shared by several key elements and key factors. Incidentally, I was going to add another thing when Deepak said about the Hawala. We have a very strong act I mentioned in the first dialogue also, PAMILA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act. And that is applied very soundly and applicable in a very stringent manner as far as the narco terrorism is concerned. The unfortunate part is that the PAMILA was actually introduced at one stage only for such things, that is the narco terrorists who are working through Hawala and means which the money is brought from outside. Money laundering is done, as you call it. Black money is sent and laundered into white money. But with the passage time, the PAMILA has diverted and has started dealing with other criminals also, not only confining to the narco terrorists. So I feel there's been more emphasis by PAMILA agencies to deal with narco terrorism than dealing with other agencies. Now, approaches which are for future what are required is that there should be a targeted operation. Future strategies in India should involve more targeted and intelligence-driven law enforcement operation against the terrorists and drug traffickers. At the moment, there are operations, but they are not that much targeted and not intelligence-driven operation. Then there is a second part for India is international cooperation. It is there, but you will find in the last few years at a lot of places, the international cooperation is lacking. Because even if sometime a red corner notice is issued by the Interpol, it is only considered a paper on the paper. It is not a question of any, it doesn't enforce upon you that you must produce that man who has gone with PAMILA, who has violated PAMILA, who has done Hawala. So therefore, the international cooperation is very important for India. For future outlook, emphasizes the need in a very important manner, and neighboring countries and international parties, they must be involved to share intelligence and cooperate and coordinate in our operation in India. Then the third part is the community engagement and awareness, which I mentioned, dealing with media operations in India. Then strengthening the border controls, given the extent of narco-terrorist state which is being carried out in India, the porous nature of certain borders, as mentioned by General Deepak also, is close to the Golden Triangle. It needs strict controls. They will have to have certain strengthening of the border control measures. Enhanced surveillance may be there. There may be more technological adoption. There may be more personal training with the people, so that this critical element of strengthening the border control is enhanced. Then, by and large, ongoing efforts lack certain capacity. So capacity building, I mean, includes specialized units focused only on narco-terrorism, maybe earmarked, or they involve equipping the agencies which are already dealing with it with advanced technology, with analytical capabilities, and then what are the best international practices to deal with narco-terrorism. Regional initiatives also is a part of the future our outlook in India. Unless participation at regional level and regional initiatives there in a country like India, vast country like India, there can be no thrust on this narco-terrorism unless the regional initiatives and collaborative efforts are there from the regions also concerned. For future needs, our future program should include all this, and not only all this which I have mentioned, but also to address the root causes of narco-terrorism. what are the socio-economic development, what are the counter-radicalization programs which are going on, what would be the support measures required for controlling terrorism, how the technology and intelligence integration has to be done, and how the data analysis should be done, how cyber security should be done. So number of other elements are there which are also required to be made more strong for the future India, where we have to be not at least free, at least to great extent control the narco terrorism in our country. Thank you.
And may I add one more point here, Pawan, based on what I had said. You see the collaborative aspect. There was one report about a week back to say that Great Britain has seized 500 bank accounts, money from which was flowing into the terrorist organizations abroad. So again, I think at the national level also, the collaboration between India and UK has taken place. And there were reports that many more such bank accounts are going to be put under curb. So that's one of the collaborative aspects which I wanted to mention.
How important is the extradition treaty that India should have with various countries to curb narco terrorism? Mr. Sipal Singh.
You see, there are multi-treaties. We have got treaties at various levels. The question is, these all the treaties which are there, there is some lacuna or the other at one stage or the other. That's what I submitted to you. That is there, I have already said in the total holistic approach that the future outlook should address this also. There are treaties. There are international treaties or bilateral treaties with other countries, but some or the other, it is not foolproof. So the key factors I've indicated above, which I've said 1, 2, 3, 4, but I definitely tend to agree that there are multilateral treaties, multinational treaties, in treaties with other countries, but by and large, that these treaties are not implemented to the extent required. There are always some lacuna, and then we refer to that lacuna, ask some people, then we say, no, it doesn't come under this law and that law, because somehow there is no such thing as international punishment under these laws. Because they can already this belong to this country, they're sent to this country. But even sending to the other country, that narco terrorist is a very difficult operation. You have to issue notice, red corner notice is issued. The place is a post office. The word used is that red corner notice which is issued by the Interpol is just like a post office. It doesn't involve any legal implication. That if you do not comply with the red corner notice, the country will be responsible where that narco terrorist has run away. And if a red corner notice is issued for its apprehension and he is not apprehended, you can't say anything to the country. Since it's only a question of giving a label, that's a red corner notice. Because the red corner notice, it doesn't carry any legal involvement. All right, when the red corner notice is issued by the Interpol, you have to comply with this. Some of the people in our country are not aware what is red corner. You say red corner notice, so you are talking about bilateral treaties here become more important even than red corner. Because red corner notice by any, so there any organization or any Interpol by other organization has no meaning unless it's got the legal backing. So my submission is, that is what I said, that there are lacunas in the international and bilateral treaties. How these treaties can be made more effective is that we may have to introduce certain preventive, not only preventive, certain punitive measures also. Unless there is a punitive action against narco-terrorism in these treaties, the effects are very minimal. So therefore, I said all the time that the future outlook for addressing narco-terrorism in India requires a holistic and adaptable approach, taking into consideration all these factors. Success will only hinge on the integration of enhanced law enforcement. Not only giving legal enforcement is important, international collaboration, community engagement, and sustained efforts are required to address the root causes. But as the landscape evolves, as the flexibility comes, the innovation and commitment earlier enshrined in these bilateral treaties, they become null and void. So I am of the view that all such treaties have to be taken into view that how, if these are not complied with, what will be our focus to treat with them as a for a punitive action against such a person or such a country.
Thank you very much. I think we sort of want to conclude the second part of our narco terrorism series. Today, we've discussed a lot of points. We discussed a lot of points in our part one of the narco terrorism podcast. We shall be doing the third part of narco terrorism podcast shortly. And what I would request everybody who's listening in is that if you have liked what we are doing, please on the YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. And as I conclude today's discussion, it is evident that narco terrorism poses a complex challenge that demands unified action on multiple fronts. From bolstering law enforcement strategies to fostering international collaboration, the path forward requires collective effort. Moreover, media's role in raising awareness and fostering public vigilance cannot be overstated. By understanding the profound impact on our daily lives, we can galvanize efforts towards a safer, drug-free future. Let's remain vigilant, proactive, and committed to addressing narco-terrorism from the well-being of our communities and nation. I'd like to thank you both, sirs, for contributing in such a large measure to this particular podcast. And as I would like to sort of mention, Mr. Sipal Singh is the president of NISSMAT and General Deepak Mehta is the director of NISSMAT. And between the two of them and me as the moderator, I thank you all for listening into our podcast. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, boss.
Thanks.